Oh my goodness, weather family! We've got the craziest, most exciting weather pattern setting up over the next couple weeks. We're talking Arctic air, possible winter storms, severe weather, you name it. Mother Nature's cooking up something special for us. All right, friends, let's jump right into this wild forecast together. Your weather buddy Mitch here, and what a gorgeous Sunday morning it is, November 24th, 2025. I really hope you're having the most wonderful weekend ever. If you're new here, smash that subscribe button. You're gonna love our weather family. And hey, if there's anything on your heart that you'd like us to pray about, just drop it in the comments. We'd be honored to pray with you. That's what makes this community so special. We're not just about weather, we're about caring for each other. Now, let's dive into this incredible forecast. Okay, friends, let's chat about temperatures. So this Wednesday, Thanksgiving Eve on November 27th, wow. I know so many of you are traveling to see family, and boy oh boy, we've got this cold front marching across the country. See these pretty blue areas? Those mean it's going to be chillier than normal, while those gorgeous orange and red colors out west and along the coast mean it'll be nice and toasty, about 5 to 10 degrees warmer than usual. But guys, if you're heading east for Turkey Day, bundle up, because it's looking like a legit chilly Thanksgiving. And when I say chilly, I mean chilly. We could be looking at temps 5 to 10 degrees below normal, and some places might be a whopping 18 to 27 degrees colder than usual. I'm talking genuinely, seriously cold Thanksgiving Day for a bunch of you. You know what's crazy? Just last week, we were looking at this super mild, pleasant Thanksgiving across the east, but this stubborn cold front decided to speed up and bring even more cold air behind it. Nature's full of surprises. So yeah, we've definitely shifted toward the chilly side for Eastern folks. And listen, as we cruise past Thanksgiving, that last weekend of November is going to be downright cold. This green area here, we're talking 18 to 27 degrees below normal. Brrr. Even my southern friends who rarely see freezing temps are going to wake up to some seriously chilly mornings. Now, here's where it gets interesting, weather family. As we roll into the last Sunday of November 30th, things should chill out a bit. Pun intended. And we'll see those lovely warm colors coming back. Above average temps are returning. But here's the million-dollar question that's got us meteorologists scratching our heads. What happens with the air mass that comes next? I'm still thinking we're going to see some serious Arctic air, and I mean serious, dropping down into the heart of America. Round 2, here we go. This big atmospheric wave is going to bring some absolutely frigid temperatures behind it. Trust me, this is definitely happening. But check this out. It doesn't dive quite as aggressively into the south central states as we thought it might. We're still looking at crazy cold temps, 18 to 27 degrees below normal. But look at those deep purple colors up north. That's 27 to 45 degrees below average. Holy moly, that's cold with capital letters. Now look, I'm not going to get too crazy about how cold this might be since we're still looking 6 to 10 days out. And you know how us weather folks are, we're seeing some wiggles in the forecast models. But here's the thing, when the models keep shifting in the same direction as we get closer to the actual time frame, instead of flip-flopping all over the place, that tells us something real is happening. It looks like this next blast of cold air is shifting a bit east. And get this is just one computer model run, but we've been seeing this same trend for a couple days now. So as we get into December 1st, this super cold air mass shows up over the central and east central states. Meanwhile, the southeast is hanging on to that nice warm bubble, lucky ducks. But hold your horses, because that warm spell doesn't last long, just a few days, and then bam! December 2nd rolls around, and this fancy European AI model, which has been absolutely nailing it lately, by the way, shows the entire eastern United States getting smacked with below normal temperatures again. And I'm not talking just a little below normal, we're talking significantly below normal. Meanwhile, our friends out west are going to start warming up nicely. Honestly, I'm a little jealous. So are we starting to see this cold air pattern shift with that second blast we've been chatting about? Oh, absolutely. Even though we're looking 10 days out into early December, instead of those toasty warm temps we were expecting, now we're seeing seriously cold conditions. Plot twist. And if we keep rolling this forecast forward, guess what? Another Arctic air mass comes knocking. But there's a little tug of war happening. That warm ridge tries to fight back across the south for a bit. But if you look way out to the end of the forecast, we're right back to chilly temps. This is way out into December. December 7th to be exact, and it's showing another Arctic air mass getting ready to party. So here's the deal, weather family. Mother Nature is absolutely in love with sending Arctic air down to visit us this year. The big mystery is exactly where it's going to land. And folks, I'm going to be completely honest with you, this is one tricky forecast to crack. Looking at our trusty European model, it's telling the same story. We've got that first cold front pretty much locked and loaded. Nothing too mysterious about this baby. We've just been trending it faster and colder as the days go by. So, we're looking at Friday, November 28th, and friends, it's going to be one chilly weekend ahead. The European model does want to warm things up much quicker across the southeast, reaching all the way up to Ohio, the mid-Atlantic, parts of the Midwest. But then boom! By early December, we're right back into that cold pattern. I want to show you something really interesting about this potential December pattern. This Euro model is suggesting some pretty significant cold air diving down from Canada. And folks, when we see this kind of setup, it often means business for winter weather enthusiasts. Now let's talk about something that could really shake things up, winter storm potential. With these temperature patterns we're seeing, especially that clash between cold and warm air masses, we could be looking at some interesting winter weather opportunities as we head into December. The key will be timing, when these cold shots arrive, and whether we have moisture available. For our friends in the Great Lakes region, you know what this means. Lake effect snow season could really ramp up. With this kind of cold air moving over those relatively warm lake waters, we could see some impressive snowbands developing, especially downwind of Lakes Erie and Ontario. Now, let's shift gears and talk about what this means for different regions across our beautiful country. For the Northeast, you folks have been dealing with a pretty traditional start to winter so far. This upcoming cold shot should feel quite familiar, though it might be more intense than what you've seen recently. The Southeast is where things get really interesting. Y'all haven't seen much cold air lately, so this Thanksgiving cold snap might feel pretty shocking to the system. For the Midwest and Ohio Valley, you're right in the crosshairs for these temperature swings. One day you might be enjoying mild weather, the next you could be bundling up in your heaviest winter coat. Out west, you folks are sitting pretty for most of this forecast period. While the eastern two-thirds of the country deals with this roller coaster, you'll be enjoying generally pleasant conditions. Now, I want to dive into something meteorologists call teleconnections, basically global weather patterns, that influence our weather here in North America. These are super important for understanding long-range forecasts. The Arctic Oscillation, or AO, is one of our key players right now. When it goes negative, it typically allows that Arctic air to escape the polar regions and dive down into the lower 48 states. And guess what? That's exactly what we're seeing. The North Atlantic Oscillation, or NAO, is another crucial pattern we're watching. A negative NAO often supports those big dips in the jet stream that bring us Arctic air. And then there's the Pacific North American pattern, the PNA. This one's been pretty active lately and plays a huge role in where our storm systems track. All of these patterns are kind of lining up to support this more active, colder weather pattern we're forecasting. It's like the atmosphere is setting up all the pieces for a classic early winter scenario. Now, let's talk about what this means for your daily life and any travel plans you might have. For Thanksgiving travel, Wednesday, November 26th and Thursday, November 27th, you'll want to pack some extra layers, especially if you're heading to the eastern half of the country. Air travel could see some delays, not necessarily from snow, but from strong winds associated with this cold front. Those winds could be gusting up to 45 miles per hour in some areas behind the front. For road travel, conditions should be manageable for Thanksgiving itself, but that return travel Sunday and into early next week could get interesting if any winter weather develops. Let's talk about what this cold means for your energy bills and home preparation. With temperatures potentially 18 to 27 degrees below average in some spots, your heating costs could spike pretty significantly. Now's a great time to check your furnace filters and make sure your heating system is ready for the extra workload. For our friends who haven't experienced a real cold snap yet this season, don't forget to disconnect and drain those outdoor hoses and maybe give your plants some protection. Now, I want to address something that's been on a lot of people's minds. Is this an early sign of a harsh winter? Well, early season cold snaps don't necessarily predict the entire winter pattern, but they do give us clues about what the atmosphere might be capable of this season. What we're seeing is the polar vortex, that area of low pressure and cold air around the North Pole, showing some instability, When it wobbles or stretches, it can send fingers of Arctic air southward. This particular setup suggests the pattern could remain active through the early part of winter. But remember, winter patterns can change. We could see this cold phase then shift into something milder. Let's dive into some regional specifics because I know you all love the local details. For New York City and the tri-state area, you're looking at highs, potentially in the upper 20 seconds to low 30 seconds. For Thanksgiving Day, that's about 15 to 20 degrees below your average high of around 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Boston, you might not even crack 25 degrees Fahrenheit for your high temperature on Thursday. That would make it one of the coldest Thanksgivings on record for Beantown. Down in Atlanta, where you've been enjoying those mild 60 seconds and 70 seconds lately, Thursday's high might struggle to reach the upper 30 seconds. Talk about a temperature shock. Charlotte, Raleigh, you're in the same boat. Highs in the 30 seconds when you should be seeing mid-50 seconds. For our friends in Chicago, this won't be quite as shocking since you've had some cold already, but highs in the teens for Thanksgiving would still be pretty impressive. Minneapolis and the Twin Cities, you might be looking at single-digit highs. Bundle up, folks. Now let's check in with our western friends. Los Angeles, you're sitting pretty with highs in the 70 seconds. San Francisco, pleasant 60 seconds for you. Seattle, you'll be in the 50 seconds with your typical autumn weather. The Pacific Coast is definitely the place to be during this cold outbreak. Phoenix, you'll be enjoying those perfect 70-degree days while the rest of us bundle up. Now, let's talk about precipitation chances, because cold air alone doesn't tell the whole story. With this first cold front moving through, we're mainly looking at rain for most areas, but as we get into the colder air behind the front, some northern areas could see their first snow of the season. The Great Lakes region is where we'll want to watch for lake effect snow development. With water temperatures still relatively warm and this Arctic air moving over, we could see some significant snow bands develop, especially east and southeast of the lakes. Places like Buffalo, Syracuse, Erie, Pennsylvania, and parts of Michigan's Upper Peninsula could see their first real lake effect snow event of the season. For snow lovers, this is exciting news. For commuters in those areas, well, time to dust off the snow shovel. The mountain regions are also worth watching. The Appalachians could see some snow showers, and the Rockies might get a nice fresh powder coating for any early season skiing enthusiasts. Now, let's talk about that second wave of cold air we're tracking for early December. This one could be even more impressive than the Thanksgiving cold shot. The models are suggesting this could be a genuine Arctic blast, the kind that makes headlines. We're talking about air masses that originate in northern Canada and Siberia, completely unmodified by their journey south. That's meteorologist speak for really, really cold. If this forecast holds, we could see some locations experiencing their coldest December temperatures in years. And here's where it gets really interesting for winter weather potential. When you have air this cold moving over relatively warm surfaces like the Great Lakes, the Gulf of Mexico, or even the Atlantic Ocean, it creates incredible instability in the atmosphere. That instability can lead to some pretty impressive snow events, especially in the lake effect zones. But it can also set the stage for larger storm systems if the timing and track are right. We're still too far out to get specific about any potential winter storms, but the overall pattern is definitely supportive of active winter weather as we head into December. Let me paint you a picture of what this could mean for different activities and industries. For retailers, especially those with Black Friday and holiday shopping events planned, this cold weather could actually boost sales of winter merchandise that's been sitting on shelves. For farmers, especially those with late-season crops still in the field, this cold snap could mean the end of the growing season much earlier than expected. For energy companies, they're probably already ramping up production and making sure infrastructure is ready for what could be the first major test of the heating season. And for all of us regular folks, it's time to break out the heavy coats, gloves, and scarves. Now, I want to talk about something that's been fascinating to watch, how this pattern has evolved. Just a week ago, we were looking at a much different Thanksgiving forecast. The models were showing mild, pleasant weather for most of the eastern US. But as we've gotten closer to the event, the models have been consistently trending colder. This is actually pretty common with these Arctic air mass forecasts. The models sometimes underestimate just how cold and how far south these air masses can push. It's one of those situations where the atmosphere tends to be more extreme than the computers initially predict. That's why we meteorologists are always harping about checking back for updates. The forecast can and does change, especially with these more dynamic weather patterns. Speaking of updates, let me give you some timing details for this week's weather changes. Monday, November 25th, will start off pretty typical for most areas. Tuesday, November 26th, is when we'll start to see changes, with increasing clouds and winds picking up. Wednesday, November 27th, the Thanksgiving Eve, the cold front arrives in earnest for most areas. This is when temperatures will start their dramatic drop, especially behind the front. Thursday, November 28th, Thanksgiving Day, will be the coldest day of this initial wave. Friday and Saturday will remain cold, with lake-effect snow possible in the typical areas. Sunday, December 1st, we might see a brief moderation before that second wave of cold starts building. Now, let's talk about wind chills, because when you combine these cold temperatures with wind, it's going to feel even more brutal out there. Behind this cold front, winds could be gusting 535 miles per hour, with some areas seeing gusts up to 45 miles per hour. When you combine air temperatures in the teens and 20s with winds like that, wind chills could drop below 0 Fahrenheit for much of the northern tier of states. Even down into the Ohio Valley and parts of the Mid-Atlantic, wind chills could be in the single digits. That's the kind of cold that takes your breath away when you step outside. For our southern friends who aren't used to this kind of cold, please take it seriously. Hypothermia and frostbite can happen faster than you might think in these conditions. Make sure to dress in layers, cover exposed skin, and limit your time outdoors if possible. And please check on elderly neighbors and relatives during this cold snap. Let's also talk about what this means for our four-legged friends and outdoor pets. This kind of cold is dangerous for animals too. Make sure pets have warm shelter, and consider bringing outdoor cats and dogs inside if possible during the worst of the cold. Even livestock will need extra protection and unfrozen water sources. Now, I want to shift gears and talk about something meteorologists call pattern recognition. This type of setup, with the polar vortex becoming more active and these teleconnection patterns, reminds me of some classic early winter patterns we've seen in the past. Years like 2014, 2009, and 2013 all had similar setups around this time of year. Those winters ended up being quite memorable for cold and snow across much of the eastern US. Now, that doesn't guarantee this winter will follow the same path, but it does give us some historical context for what we might be dealing with. The key difference this time is how early in the season we're seeing this pattern develop. Usually, these Arctic outbreaks don't become really impressive until January and February. Seeing it this active in late November and early December suggests the winter pattern is getting an early and aggressive start. For snow lovers and winter sports enthusiasts, this is potentially great news. Ski resorts across the northern tier are probably firing up their snowmaking equipment as we speak. Natural snowfall combined with these cold temperatures could lead to an excellent early season base. Ice fishing enthusiasts might want to start thinking about their gear too, as some northern lakes could start forming ice much earlier than usual this year. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Weather patterns can change quickly, and what looks impressive 10 days out might moderate as we get closer to the actual event. That's why I always emphasize checking back for updates and not making major decisions based on extended forecasts alone. However, the trends have been consistent enough that I'm comfortable saying this Thanksgiving cold snap is looking quite likely, and the potential for continued cold into December is real. Let me wrap up the temperature discussion by giving you some perspective on just how unusual this could be. For many locations across the eastern US, this could be the coldest Thanksgiving in 5 to 10 years. Some spots might even challenge records for the date. That's particularly impressive given that we're coming off what's been a generally warm autumn for most areas. The temperature departure from what we've been experiencing lately will make this feel even more dramatic. It's like going from summer to winter with almost no transition period. Now, before we move on to other weather topics, I want to touch on something important: the MJO, or Madden-Julian Oscillation. This is a global weather pattern that travels around the equator and influences weather patterns worldwide. Right now, we're seeing the MJO in a phase that typically supports these kinds of cold outbreaks. It's been progressing through phases that favor troughing over eastern North America. Meteorologists speak for the jet stream dipping south and bringing cold air with it. The latest runs are showing the MJO continuing into Phase 8, which historically has been associated with cold and snowy patterns across the eastern United States. This isn't a guarantee, but it's another piece of the puzzle supporting our cold forecast. It's like having multiple weather patterns all working together to create the same outcome. When you see this kind of agreement between different atmospheric oscillations, it gives meteorologists more confidence in the overall pattern forecast. We've been tracking this MJO progression for several days now, and it's been quite consistent in showing this evolution toward patterns that favor eastern U.S. troughing and cold air. However, we do need to watch for what's called the circle of death in MJO forecasting. That's when the oscillation gets weak and the pattern becomes less predictable. If that happens, it could throw off our cold air and winter weather projections for December. So we'll keep monitoring this closely as we head through the week. The good news is that most models are keeping the MJO strong and coherent, which supports our forecast for continued cold patterns. All right, folks, let's shift our focus to some other weather we need to keep an eye on. Tomorrow, Monday, November 25th, we've got some potentially spicy severe weather brewing across our south-central friends. Now, severe weather hasn't been stealing the headlines this fall, but tomorrow's looking a little more interesting. We're tracking a slight risk stretching from just south of Austin through Waco, over to Shreveport, into Arkansas, northern Louisiana, and across central and eastern Texas. That's a level 2 out of 5 on our severe weather scale. Not too wild, but definitely worth keeping an eye on. And folks, we do have a 5% tornado chance in the main area, with a 2% risk in the surrounding zones. Looking at our fancy high-tech models for tomorrow, we're already seeing storms popping up in the morning, and by afternoon, things could get pretty interesting with some rotating storms across eastern Texas. While we're not expecting a whole bunch of isolated supercells, we definitely need to stay weather aware for those spinning storms. Mary, my amazing loyal follower in Northeast Texas, sweetie, please be extra careful tomorrow. And everyone in Arkansas and Eastern Texas, keep an eye on these storms through Monday afternoon. This is shaping up to be quite an active day weather-wise, and we might even see an upgrade to enhanced risk, level 3 out of 5, which we haven't seen in quite a while. I honestly can't remember the last time we had a level 3 enhanced risk this late in the season. We'll dive deeper into the storm details in tomorrow morning's forecast video. For today's weather, Sunday, November 24th, most of our energy is hanging out up north. We've got some lovely festive flurries drifting around the northeast, nothing too heavy, just enough to add to your winter wonderland feel. There's some trapped energy down in the Four Corners region and a bit of activity in the Pacific Northwest. Pretty much the same pattern we've been seeing the last few days. We still have fog issues across the country, especially thick in Kentucky and parts of the Deep South and central regions. Some winter weather advisories are popping up here and there, and we have flood watches active across northern Texas where heavy rain is expected. Today's severe weather risk is mainly focused on Texas, the I-20 corridor from Pecos, all the way through Abilene, Midland, and up to the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. It's a level 1 out of 5 marginal risk, and we also have an excessive rainfall risk in this area. From Abilene through DFW and up into southern Oklahoma, we're looking at a 15% risk of excessive rainfall. That's the yellow-shaded level 2 risk area. The southeast continues to be bone dry today. I haven't seen any measurable rain. At my location for the entire month of November, not a single drop. The only moisture we've gotten is from morning dew. It's been incredibly dry across the region. I'm actually surprised more people aren't talking about this drought situation. But I guess everyone's focused on the upcoming cold. For the Northeast, you folks are enjoying those festive flurries. Perfect for getting your winter season statistics off to a nice start. You've been in more of a winter pattern while the South and Southwest have stayed warm, so you're actually having a pretty traditional start to the cold season. No major early season storms or anything dramatic, just those nice snow showers here and there. It's going to get much more winter-like later this week with lake effect snow and all. For the south-central U.S., thunderstorms will be developing across Texas and Oklahoma today. Heavy rain will be the main story, setting the stage for tomorrow's more significant severe weather threat. So definitely expect some rumbles of thunder across these areas today. The north-central U.S. is looking at a pretty quiet Sunday, some warmer air moving through, so nothing too exciting to report. But that'll change dramatically later this week. In the western U.S., that trapped energy in the Four Corners finally gets kicked out today, bringing those thunderstorms across the southern plains. We'll also see some higher elevation snow. and lower elevation rain across the Pacific Northwest over the next 24 hours. Temperature-wise, it's not extremely cold or hot anywhere today. The southeast is well above average, enjoying those 70 seconds, while the northeast is dealing with quite cold temps. Highs in the 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and 40 seconds across the northern tier. Out west, no real cold air has moved in yet, so you're still enjoying pleasant conditions. But get ready, because this is the calm before the storm for much of the country. Well, that's a wrap on today's incredible weather adventure, my amazing weather family. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart for hanging out with me this gorgeous Sunday morning, November 24th, 2025. God bless every single one of you beautiful people, and I hope your day is absolutely fantastic. We'll be back bright and early tomorrow morning to dig even deeper into this wild and exciting weather pattern that's coming our way. Bundle up, stay cozy, stay safe, and always remember, we're all in this crazy weather journey together, and I love each and every one of you.